Welcome to the Podium Proof F1 podcast. My name is Frank Alessi.
I'm David Alessi.
And Michael Bell.
Right, the 2023 season is here. The wait is finally over. Testing is done, and it is race week in Bahrain. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. Race week. God, it's been for forever.
Feels like it. Really hadn't been that long. The season's so damn long now.
I know, right?
We're here, boys. We're here.
We are. We made it. We got, as of the release of this video, there will be 5 days. Or no, that is as of recording time, as of right now. 5 days and whatever it is, like 13 hours or something like that. So, all right. So, first things first. As usual, I'll go through my little spiel here. If you're catching this on the podcast, the description, there will be a link to the YouTube video. There will also be a link to our link tree that'll take you to our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It'll also take you to our webpage. Feel free to shoot us an email, DM, give us a like and follow. We greatly appreciate it. And tonight, we are joined with special guest, Mr. Michael Bell from F1 for Funds. That's with a Z.
That's right.
Welcome, Michael. We appreciate you hanging out with us tonight.
That's on TikTok.
Yes. Sorry, that is on TikTok.
It's an honor to be with you, boys. I love your content on TikTok and YouTube. You guys need to check that out. I'm just a small TikTok page right now that just need a space in America. We could talk about F1, So,
amen to that.
Come check me out. It's F1 for Funds with a Z at the end. So I'm excited to talk about some Bahrain. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, right. I mean, man, this is kind of like what you asked us earlier, like kind of what was our goal here, and that was kind of like this is kind of exactly what it is. Like it just kind of I just kind of realized as you were saying that, like, creating this conversation, meeting new people, and just having new conversations and dialogue in America about F1.
Yes.
So like this right here is exactly what I kind of had in mind for, the purpose of this.
This is it.
Like a couple weeks ago, we had Dustin on from the Dallas Fort Worth F1 page.
Nice.
And, that was a blast. Sitting there rapping with him, and that was for the season review.
Yep.
And dude, what we went on that one, like 3.5 hours.
Night, bro.
I'll tell you this: I did not pace myself for a 3.5 hour podcast.
Nope.
But yeah, man. So I'm excited, man. This is fun. This is kind of what it's all about for us,
It's nice to know guys like you exist out there that we can, have a good conversation about F1. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, man. So let's get into it. First things first. David, what you sipping on tonight?
I am gonna break out something I haven't in quite a while.
I see the tube back there.
You see the tube, huh?
I don't know which one that is.
I thought it was fitting, seeing as when we started off this podcast this time last year, this was the first bottle I went to. So
yeah, we both did. Yeah. We opened it up together.
Although this episode technically isn't the first of season 2, it's close enough. So
it's the first one. It's the first one since cars have been on the track in 23.
Yes, we'll go with that. So this is Colonel E.H. Taylor, the single barrel. Comes in at typical 100 proof. This is bottled in bond. And this single barrel is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, there's not a whole lot more info with this particular one. I'm sure there's there's a warehouse number or a RIC number somewhere. Not that it really means anything to us, but so you're gonna join in.
I'm just gonna have a little a little toast. That's a great idea.
It's perfect.
Toast with it.
Yeah, I'm not going much. That bottle, when I pulled it out the tube, I kind of shocked myself at how little was left in there. I thought there was
strikingly low.
Yeah,
I just want to know if that whiskey is podium proof.
It is. This one in my hand is not, but
yeah. See,
some of these ones.
I'm getting pretty low there, Frank.
My other bottle that I'm fixing to talk about is definitely.
Was that I caught a quick glimpse. Was that a Magnus bottle there?
No.
Whoa.
Come on, dude.
Okay. I just caught a quick glimpse of it.
I can't even get that over here.
You can't just get the regular one?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I can get regular all day.
I don't want to spend $100 on a regular one.
No.
If I'm gonna buy a
I want to
Joseph
spend
Magnus, it's gonna be the
$300 on a
cigar
cigar
blend.
blend.
But my actual bottle that I'm going to be drinking tonight is Sugarfield Spirits bourbon, and it is actually okay. Well, the distillery is here in Gonzales, right south of where I live in Prairieville. However, the whiskey that's actually in this bottle is MGP. It's source whiskey, so MGP. We know it's going to be banging, but this is actually a single barrel store pick from Oak Point. David, this is the one.
Is that the one I tried? Okay.
Don't you have one? Didn't I get you one?
I don't think I actually got one.
This bad boy is the Andes Mint.
No, or if you did get me one, I didn't get it when I was there.
Yeah, no, I don't have two of them. So
no, because I think I remember. I think I remember talking about it, or maybe I even looked at a pick that Hocus had, and I wasn't sure how I was fitting the bottles that I already had in the luggage back here. So I think that was one that I had to opt against.
Gotcha.
But need to get a future whiskey sponsorship on this podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
But something like that is in the works.
Love it.
A little sneak peek.
You guys got a lot of friends. You got to have a whiskey sponsor friend out there, right?
I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
We got a we got a little something in the works.
Awesome.
That should be hopefully happen soon.
This podcast was made to have its own whiskey. Just saying.
Right.
I know, right? So that's the talk about the goals of this podcast.
Yep. That's one.
That would be the ultimate thing for us to just be able to have our own barrel pick from somewhere.
Yeah. We've talked about that
freaking
before.
Thing ever.
You know, and I don't think it's out of the question. I think we could definitely make that happen.
Like I said, it's in the works. I mean, we're gonna have to grow this thing out significantly before we can do that. But the possibility is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Love it. It's gonna happen. So, I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you sipping on anything tonight?
Well, since I shared that I have a newborn at home, I'm waking up, kicking ass, and repeating. So just a little bit of coffee at this late night hour.
I heard that, man.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Sleep is the new premium these days. I know you guys have been through that.
No doubt. As we speak, mine's crawling underneath us. He left his Chromebook out here.
Other than that, I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy. So give me any kind of bourbon, make it an old-fashioned, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's my go-to, man. I sit there and I'll try all these different ways and tinker and playing mad scientist on my bar with an old-fashioned, and that's my favorite drink, period.
Nice.
Yeah, like I don't do cocktails a lot, and I have not gone to the depths that Frank has with perfecting it. But if I'm gonna make one, I make an old fashioned, and hell, it's plenty good enough. I don't feel the need to tinker with it every time.
Okay, but the question is, how clean is your ice, David?
Well, I had these trays that actually made some decent clear ice cubes.
Okay.
The problem is I don't have a large enough freezer or just enough space in the current freezer to make just like a solid block with a cooler and do the clear ice. But with the trays that I had, it wasn't bad. It didn't 100% disappear in the glass, but it was pretty good given what I was working with.
Sounds like you need to buy another freezer.
I do. I absolutely do. I need
the new reachable goal is a freezer fits clean ice.
Yeah, but see, now that poses the next problem. I don't know where the hell I'm going to put the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Like
secondary problems, bro.
Right.
Well, I mean,
figure that out when you get home.
Yeah, right. If it was just a matter of getting it, I'd have gone and got it already. But
it's simple. Just right next to the outlet that's outside. That's it.
Yeah, I don't want a deep freezer sitting on my porch.
Wow. All right. Well, let's get into some F1 here.
Let's do
As
it.
David would say, let's start our engines.
That's right. I mean, living in Virginia for so long has definitely rubbed off on them.
I think it might have. It might have.
Over there in official NASCAR country.
Yeah. Look, man, I've got plenty of friends that are all circle track racers. I still have yet to, I couldn't tell you the last time I've watched a NASCAR race or anything, but I've got plenty of friends that are circle track racers. And look, to be honest with you, and I'll talk shit with them all day long back and forth about going in a circle. But last time we were at Dominion Raceway for an event last year, they let a handful of us, I guess, certain people that they trusted, they opened up the oval to us if we wanted to just go play around. And let me tell you something. It's definitely a lot different than what I had envisioned. Granted, we're in cars set up to go left and right. We're not in cars set up for that. So that's one thing. But dude, those walls come fast. Like you come out of a turn and that wall is there fast. And it's just the hardest part that I had was like, it's nonstop, right? You're constantly this reference point to that one, to that one, to that one, to that one, to that one. And like, it never stops, with what I'm doing, at least I get a back straight, a front straight or something. Like you get a reset moment, or even between turns. I'm not going F1 speed, so I have time between turns where like you kind of get a reset and you can, okay, there's my next reference point. There's my brake marker up there. You have time to do all that, dude, on that oval. And it's a short track. It's a 3/8 mile oval. Like it is just non-freaking stop, and you're driving out of like the top corner of the windshield, and it's just, dude, my neck hurt after, I don't know, I think we might've done 20, 30 laps. My freaking neck hurt. So look, I give those guys credit. Not my cup of tea.
I never said it wasn't hard.
Yeah,
it's just completely different.
It's vastly different, and I'm still.
It just doesn't interest me,
right? And that's where I'm at. Like I did it.
To watch.
All right, it didn't really do much for me. I'm still gonna talk shit with my friends about it, and we're gonna go back and forth. But like it's definitely its own skill set, and a much different skill set than what I had thought it would be. To be honest with you.
It did look fun to put it into the wall like Ross Chastain did last year. That looked cool.
Yeah.
That almost brought me back to NASCAR, but nah, enough.
Yeah, that move is now outlawed.
Yep.
I did see that much.
I don't even know that reference.
Oh, yeah.
So,
this Bristol, was it?
I don't know if it was.
It was a short track.
Yeah, I don't think it was Bristol. I think it was
Dover.
like or like Martinsville or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But it was last lap, and
yeah.
I don't know what position he was in.
He was in like
dude, instead of
ninth, and you need to get to fifth.
Yeah, instead of coming up and diving down into the turn, dude just went full send, kept the throttle pegged, and just rode the outside wall around the turn.
All right, I saw that on social media recently.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I did see that.
Yep. Just pulled a straight up video game move.
Full send.
The cheat code on the
on the Switch.
Yeah.
And I mean, he picked up what, like 6 or 7 spots or something crazy.
Just enough to knock someone out of the playoffs, and he got into like the Final Four or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So-
crazy.
That's hilarious.
You won't see that in F1 though.
No.
No, you won't. That's for sure.
Now that Latifi's gone, you won't.
And Schumacher.
Man, you know,
The sad thing
I
is
knew
Mick was
something-
rounding out.
yeah.
I know. He was.
I knew
he's
something
finding his
was
form
missing
finally.
from these last couple of episodes we've done, and it was talking shit about a Latifi car. Like,
Dude, I'm sorry,
I couldn't put my
man,
finger
but-
on it. I knew something was missing.
The final straw for me with him was at Suzuka, was it? When he just like turned off of the track.
And then blamed it on the car.
Yeah, and then was
I'm
like,
fine,
"Oh,
guys."
I'm okay, guys.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, we know. Like, unless you're saying you're okay that because you didn't have like
You didn't have a stroke.
yeah, like come on. Jesus.
That was amazing for us, though.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean,
Great.
unfortunately, it was during practice, so like probably a quarter of the amount of people were actually watching it.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, just like how does that happen, man?
Yeah.
Like you watch these other drivers, you know, like Checo or Gasly. I've seen Instagram videos of them with a blindfold on
yeah.
on the simulator driving these tracks.
That's
So
amazing.
like, how is that even possible? I'm talking like with gear shifts and everything.
Hmm.
How is that even possible?
That you forgot the most basic part of where the next turn is. Yeah, dude, I don't get it. You know, I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't think you were gonna pull that reference for your last straw with him. I thought you were going Coda. And I only say Coda because I mean he spun just like you did every other time. But the fact that when we got there and got to those seats on Saturday, and we were standing there and you were looking kind of across the track and you were like, bro, this is like prime for a Latifi spin. Like,
I told
he's
him
coming to see us at some point this
there
weekend.
is no chance that Latifi does not come
Yeah.
see us during this race.
And
That's
dude,
amazing.
He
3
parked
laps
it
in.
right
Oh my
in
gosh.
front of right against the tire wall, or just before the tire wall. I don't think he impacted it.
He did. He did. He
Or
bumped
he
it.
might have just bumped it.
Did you die or what?
He parked it right there in front of us.
I was struggling to get my phone out because I
Yeah.
mean, I'm telling you, like I could have spit on it.
Yep.
Oh man.
And by the time I got my phone out, he had taken off.
Yeah, like I've got a picture after he had kind of pulled away from the tire barrier. I've got a picture like right there. I couldn't get one of him parked right there.
He'll be missed. He'll be missed for entertainment value.
Yeah.
All right.
It's all right.
So let's get into some actual current F1 stuff. What you say?
Let's
So
roll.
we'll
Start that engine.
we'll run through team by team and just kind of see where things go. We'll talk about how they looked over testing and kind of loop it into this weekend and see what we think. We'll run down the order, based off of last year's constructors finishing order. So we'll start it off with Red Bull. And to be honest, in my opinion, I mean, I thought they were just as expected, right? They came out, they had a solid testing. There wasn't any major issues. They were at the top of the charts. It was just kind of everything you would expect. Nothing crazy. There was no
hiccups or
no hiccups, nor on the other side of that, there was nothing amazing that they did over the winter time that you were like, holy shit, this is a game changer. Like, it was just they progressed,
picked up right where they left off.
Yeah. They made some improvements and just kept that train moving.
Yeah, I mean that's it, man. And why would we expect anything else from them after the way they they went through last year.
Mhm.
You know, we know the way Red Bull operates is, I mean, just full out all the time, but they are well oiled. You know, that is one thing that they've always been, even in the years when they didn't have the greatest car, when they struggled with the car, everything else always operated well, you know, structurally, team wise. You know, they were always the team that was just banging out perfect pit stops.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you never saw strategy problems, you never saw pit stop problems. And really the only time you saw reliability issues in a big way was when they had the Renault engines, which there was nothing they could do about it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they had some little hiccups at the beginning of last year, but they were on top of that in no time.
Yep.
You know, so they kept trucking along. They didn't give us any reason to think that they would be anything less than better than what they were last year.
And I think what you brought up earlier with Mercedes kind of dominating the last era of regulations, are we now seeing Red Bull be the ones to dominate this era of regulations?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how to, I guess after this year we'll tell, because in my opinion, Mercedes took off and was clear of everybody. It was Mercedes racing Mercedes.
Yep.
This time, Ferrari has the pace that Red Bull has. You know, they have other issues that hold them back, but they're not trying to claw back. They're not trying to catch them in terms of how fast they can go.
Right.
You know, so it all depends on the other issues that Ferrari has. Because even like me and Dave were talking about this earlier today, even at the end of last year, when Red Bull was dominating the race weekend as a whole, Ferrari was still there in terms of who's going to get pole.
Yeah, they have great one-lap speed for sure.
Right. So to me, that's the sign that says, like, Ferrari's got it. Because as dominant as that Red Bull car was, if you look at the points gap, you're like, man, nobody even sniffed them last year. But Ferrari's car is as fast as the Red Bull. They just got other issues that they got to work out.
It just can't go as fast for as long.
Yeah.
Well, it's the tires.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
You know, so, I mean, it's kind of a different ball game from what we've been used to. But I feel like a lot of people aren't really grasping that.
Yeah. I mean, it's and look, I mean, dominance is dominance one way or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
The points at the end of the season dictate whether you could call it dominance or not. However, it is, like you said, it is different. You know, the Mercedes dominance was strictly that nobody could freaking catch them. Mercedes could have had the piss poor strategy that Ferrari did last year, and you'd have never known it in the previous era, right? It still wouldn't have freaking mattered. Like, that's the dominance they had. If, you know, the dominance Red Bull had last year, that was purely based on operational dominance. I shouldn't say purely.
The first half.
Yeah. It was operational dominance where they didn't screw up pit stops. They didn't make bad strategy calls. You know, they just operated flawlessly, and that was their advantage. It wasn't really a pace thing. But at the end of the weekend, they still put the points up. It was still effectively considered dominance. Second half of the season, we saw Ferrari with the tire deg issues, and they still had the one-lap pace. They just didn't have the pace, you know, over the race. And so, I mean, you could say that was just straight up speed dominance, but it effectively wasn't, but it was. It was kind of a little bit of both. But I think
it was just deceiving.
Yeah.
If
So
you
I
only
think,
look at the points.
right. I think saying that, or talking about the possibility of Red Bull dominance in this era, I agree. I think it's too early to tell. This year will tell a lot more as to if we're going to be looking at that coming.
If Ferrari
in the future
doesn't get,
but
because look,
I still think if we end up with that same type of points gap at the end of this year, from the looks of it, obviously anything can happen, but from the looks of it, it will be for the same reasons. It won't be just pure pace. It will be for a multitude of other reasons, I think. So again, the end of the season points dictates dominance is dominance.
right.
But the way they got there is kind of apples and oranges with how Mercedes dominated that previous era.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but I also think that, like we kind of alluded to earlier, once you get off on the right foot, as strong as Red Bull did in a set of regulations, it is hard to be caught, or if not caught,
Surpassed.
It's hard to at least not always be at the sharp end.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, whether Ferrari gets their shit together and actually poses a real threat to them, or Mercedes pulls a rabbit out of their hat and, can bring the fight to the front for real, Red Bull's going to be there for until at least 26. Because
I think both of you have great points, because David's talking about them constantly having new issues, and you're saying that Red Bull is coming in on the right foot, so it's like Red Bull doesn't even have anything to work out in a sense, whereas Ferrari has so much to work out over the season.
Right.
It'll be interesting what you pointed out last week, David, with the new regulations and the ban on the tire warmer blankets, knowing that they've had a lot of tire degradation already, if that will be a big impact on Ferrari.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, God. Look what you did.
So Lewis Hamilton is my new favorite driver.
Okay. Oh, I got his little Lego car right here that the son built. Oldest son.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So he has recently come out hardcore against the getting rid of the ban on tire warmers.
Well, of course he is. It's something to whine about.
No.
Why wouldn't he?
Because it's a brilliant point that obviously the minds in the FIA don't possess this IQ levels of how stupid of an idea it is and how big of a safety risk it's going to be. I mean, obviously we've gotten in depth on this many times, but I'd just like to commend Lewis for finally complaining about the right things.
And I'll piggyback that to support who you both know. My favorite driver is Checo, and he is known as the tire god. This can only favor the tire god if we have a new set of regulations on the tires. So I'm excited. I think this is going to favor Checo.
That's interesting. That's actually very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so let's dive into that a little bit, because he is very good at preserving tires.
Mm-hmm.
How good is he at getting heat in the tires? Because essentially those are opposite things.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean,
one
obviously
does not play into the other.
You have to get them into that window, but it's kind of like you bring them in gently and they get there, and then he's 1A, 1B. At least he's at the top of the chart in terms of who can make tires last. But if we have a situation where you have to get these babies hot quick in order for them to be working, I wonder how that would play out.
Yeah, that'd be nice to keep an eye on in our first couple races to see what's going on, because everybody's starting from freezing cold temperatures in those tires.
So this year, I think they are dropped to 70 degrees.
Entire
Celsius.
world freezing.
Yeah. And then next year was supposed to be 24 was supposed to be the band where the band came in, but I believe that has been postponed because of some tire tests that were done with those new compounds that they're developing. And essentially, I don't think it's going to go on. I think the FIA is still going to go for it. I don't think it's going to happen in 24 because Pirelli is not there with their technology, because it's going to have to be a completely different concept of a tire.
But I do think it opens up an opportunity for Checo that he doesn't normally have, since we're talking about Red Bull. And I think, with all the drivers kind of being in that same spot for this first couple races, getting used to warming these tires up from so low, having some kind of skill of tire management, I think is going to be a boost that he really needs, as we saw at the later part of the last season.
Yeah. I think that Checo, man, it's and look, let's be honest. The second Red Bull seat is such a tough place to be because Max just he just works in this Red Bull system, right? And I really feel like the way he is just absolutely perfect for the type of team that they are.
Yes.
It's like one of those marriages that just absolutely just hit it out of the park. And much like Mercedes and Lewis, I think them two, it's just everything about them just works together.
Yep.
But man, like Checo's in a tough spot, as we've seen from his predecessors in Gasly and Albon, which they've both proven to be really stellar drivers. Personally, I think Gasly is much better than Albon, ceiling wise. But neither one of them could even remotely live in Max's area.
Yeah, definitely not.
But
and I think
I think they just promoted them a little prematurely, to be honest. But I think that Checo has done about as well as you could into the situation that he came into, and the great thing about Checo is he has delivered when it was necessary. There's been times when he's just not even in the picture. He's just not on pace. He doesn't have it. He's back there fighting with Mercedes and McLarens and Alpines sometimes. And then there's other times where, like in 21, dude, you're looking at him and he's putting on master clinics of defensive driving multiple times against Lewis. And it's like, dude, where has this been? Like, why do we not see this every week? And it's not even the strange thing is, to me, what I can never figure out is it's not even weeks where he's particularly great as a whole on the weekend. But just out of nowhere, it's just like this superhuman defensive driving. And like Turkey in the wet when they ran that one-off livery. That was unfreaking real, man. And then obviously Abu Dhabi was,
Another
just
clutch
famous.
moment.
Wow.
But the funny thing about Abu Dhabi, that Checo performance in Abu Dhabi, is the way it played out. I don't know if it even mattered.
It's funny you say that. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of it, it turns out that it actually didn't.
Or maybe it did, because maybe Lewis would have been ahead enough.
Well, he
to
did.
Where he could have got a free pit stop.
That's what it was right there.
Yeah.
Because he forced him to stay on those tires.
I still think he should have taken the tires, but
yeah. It's possible that could have could have given him a window to slip in to the pits without as much risk. I don't know. I kind of feel like regardless, it was going to be the same. I still think Max would have been too close. However much further back he would have been had Checo not performed like that, I still think he'd have been too close and they'd have made the same call.
Maybe so.
Good for Checo, but
nonetheless,
nice.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
and I think the thing that excites me about going into Bahrain is both drivers of Red Bull are excited about the car, and Checo is brutally honest with how he feels about the car after every race and before every race, and if they're working on something, he kind of puts that energy out there, and they're both excited about the car, and I think that's dangerous for everybody else, and they're going to pull 180 next weekend and get the 1-2.
Ooh.
Called the shot.
All right. Well, hold on to that.
Okay.
Because we're going to...
we'll run our predictions.
Being that it's race week, we're going to close the show with predictions.
All righty. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, you still got to work out who's going to be in third.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll save that one for the end.
You're not ready.
But look, man, Red Bull is going to come out and obviously be the favorites. Obviously, they're going to. I mean, there's no reason to bet against them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have not done anything to even remotely make us think that that's not going to happen, that they're not just going to come out and continue to dominate. So with that being said, I don't know what else at this point, what else there is to say about them, because they've done everything perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, there's really not, like you said, we said at the beginning of this Red Bull topic, they picked up right where they left off. They looked as consistent and as put together as they always do. And there is nothing to the contrary. There's nothing that gives any inclination of them doing anything less this year. So, I mean, it only makes sense that we can expect the same level of performance this year.
The bar has been set.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we know, where they're going to be, what they're going to do, how well they're going to do it. It all comes down to everybody behind them. Like this season is not about Red Bull in the least. It's about what can everybody else do. It's about can Ferrari step up their game and, fix their DEG issues and pick up the race pace and not make the bad strategy calls, and can they actually take the fight to Red Bull? So, I mean, that's where we're at. This season has nothing to do with Red Bull. It has to do with everybody else.
In this case, no news is good news for Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was about as smooth of a weekend as you could draw up.
Yep.
I do think, I in terms of testing, I do have an issue with a one test weekend before we get into racing where and it's the weekend before. So like they don't even have time to go back to their headquarters, dial things in. Maybe they want to make some changes, whatever, before we go racing. I don't like that. I feel like let these guys, back in the day, they would test and 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 test nonstop. The cars were always running. There's old videos of Michael Schumacher and Eddie Irvine running in the freaking dark at Fiorano.
Yep.
I mean, literally like driving under the moonlight because they don't have lighting on the track. And now it's just like it's one weekend. Everything else is on a simulator. I think that's dumb. I can't understand why. If you're gonna condense it to one weekend, put it 2 or 3 weeks before the first race to at least give these guys a chance to go back to the factory, kind of download and process everything that all the data that they've collected.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have time to actually make changes to that data before the first race.
I think they should have some time beforehand. I mean, that makes sense to be able to go make some adjustments. I know McLaren would love that right now.
Right?
Yeah. No kidding, huh?
But I mean,
it seems like they're just trying to. Maybe it's more of a we're adding more races to the season. We've already taken up so much of the year for the drivers away from their families. It might just be that more time with their families in between.
Yeah. Well, and then here we are again, budget gap.
Yeah.
Added another race, lowered the budget, and added another race.
The budget cap's a freaking joke, dude. Like half of the things everything they says that we're trying to save money and that we're trying to go green and we're trying to do this, but everything they do says exactly the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Like hopping from continent to continent.
Yeah, well, I mean, not even that. Like, I mean, that's dumb. But, I mean, at some point, you're going to... I could care less about it, to be honest, about how they structure the races. But if they're saying they want to be green, and they want to lower their carbon footprint and all that, like, maybe let's group them together a little better.
Yeah.
But either way, like 30 races, that's their goal.
Mm-hmm.
So don't hit us with a cost cap and lower it every year and keep adding races and then adding sprints and then this and that. And, it's just like, bro, make up your mind.
Yeah.
What do you want to be? Do you want to be the pinnacle of motorsports or not?
Right. Yep. Agreed.
Anyway, this is going to snowball out of control. So let's pump the brakes. I'm going to melt that snowball real quick, and let's jump into Ferrari. Let's jump into Ferrari here. Look, I think they had a very solid test, much like Red Bull. They had a very different run plan, which I'm glad to see. They were very disinterested in setting a show time.
Mm-hmm.
That was not part of their plan. They could care less about it. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that about their plan, because that to me shows that they have for one, it's much more direct than what I feel like it has been. That's something that they came in with a plan and they just went at it and stuck to it and knocked it out, and everything went seamlessly. And that's not something that we've seen from them in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, just based off that right there, that statement, that aspect alone, that is a welcome change. That is not exactly like you said. It's not something we're accustomed to seeing here recently. So I think that right there by itself is a very good indication of the direction they're heading. I think it's a very good indication of confirmation of their choice in Fred Vassar. I think so far everything is all kind of looking like it's coming together for him.
I think it's
They were very open about the fact that they were doing extreme circumstance tests, you know, and the car stayed reliable. And it's still, even with whatever, extreme condition they were simulating in testing, they were still on pace. The fastest times, if you just looked at all the fastest times over the weekend, they were what, 2/10 off, something like that, or maybe a few more.
Well, it
But
depends.
and
It's
I
weird.
mean, and that's apples and oranges, right? Because
Right.
you can't just take everybody's fastest time. It's different days, different conditions, different fuel loads, right? Like I get all that, but ignore all that and just let's look at the fastest times. And they were on pace essentially.
Yeah.
So given the fact that they were more or less on pace while doing whatever plan they were running at that particular time, whatever extreme circumstance they were testing
So
and
it was.
finding.
Let's clarify that a little bit. They were testing the limits of setups
Yeah,
to the extreme of both sides of the spectrum. And that was essentially the core of this test for them. They pushed the car as far as they possibly could in one direction, and then they pushed it as far as they possibly could in the other direction.
mm-hmm.
And they just essentially just gathered and compiled all that data and understood to gain a more base level understanding of this car across the board.
Yep.
And maybe that's something they didn't do last year, or they struggled with, or had bigger issues when they would run into something and just went race by race and tried something, and all of a sudden it didn't work and it shredded the tires. Either
it feels
way,
like they're going back to basics in a way.
right. I mean, it's like, look, we're going to figure out everything that this car has to offer on day 1, 2, and 3. And when day 4 hits, which is practice for the first race, we know where we need to be.
Yep.
I think it's interesting to see that they, did try those other setups. They were trying the higher engine power so that it could be faster on the straights, but they were slower in the corners, which was opposite of what they were last year. They were always catching up to Red Bull or setting a better quality time because of their corner speed. So to come into testing and, try the other angle, like you said, higher top speeds in the straights, slower in the corners, it was interesting. But I did hear about Leclerc being upset with the car, with being understeer. And I don't know how long it takes to work out, but it seemed like for other drivers last season to get the understeer out of the car, it kind of took a little bit.
Well, I think that was – I'd be willing to bet that was all kind of in conjunction with the extreme setups that they were running.
Yeah.
So come the end of the test, the car looked. I didn't watch it in its entirety, but I saw quite a few clips of it. It looked pretty dialed in terms of the way it kind of was able to turn into the corner. I know they definitely started off in Leclerc's first run with some understeer, but from what I read, he was running kind of the most extreme setup in terms of least amount of downforce. So,
It's interesting because
take that for what it's worth.
Both drivers are opposite. Sainz loves the understeer. So it's interesting where they find that balance in the two drivers. And, especially with, Fred saying they don't have one, primary driver. They have two good drivers. So,
well, look, man, I think that whenever you have a driver lineup like they do, I don't think you can designate a number one or number two.
Not at the beginning of the season, anyway.
No. But that's what I mean. Like when Michael Schumacher was there, it was understood. Mm-hmm. Rubens kind of didn't want to believe it, but it was understood. Same thing with Max. Same thing with Lewis when Valtteri was there. I think now the dynamic's a little bit different because Russell's the future for Mercedes. So I don't think they're going to play that number one, number two thing until math dictates it. But, make no mistake, Valtteri Bottas was the anti-Nico Rosberg situation.
Yep. To a T.
Yeah. So, but if you're going to sign a driver lineup like Charles and Carlos ain't going to stick around if he's designated number two at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do fear that'll happen, though, because Leclerc is obviously more marketable. You wonder, and being from Monaco, you wonder if Ferrari's going, to top down that decision. Let's get Leclerc, behind the scenes. We'll see. Sainz a smart guy, though.
Look, I think that these two have a legitimate chance to make an absolute juggernaut of a team.
Yes.
Because once Carlos got on top of this new car, I mean, team-wise, I think they were the best. Mm-hmm. Obviously the car had its limitations and its issues, but in terms of where those two were able to put the car when the car was working, I mean, I don't know if there's a stronger pair.
Yeah, I think the dynamic there is probably one of the best on the grid right now.
Yeah, I think.
Although it is.
I say that from a constructor's standpoint.
Yeah.
Not from a driver's battle standpoint. Because it's going to, all right, just for shits and giggles, let's play this game. Let's say Ferrari has ironed out their issues of tire deg and reliability.
And they have a new strategy engineer this year, so.
Right. Well, kind of. They just flip-flopped. You're no longer coming to the race, and you from Maranello, now you're coming to the race. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But they didn't fire anybody, which is interesting. That's not the Ferrari way.
That is not. Well, I mean, that's the Mattia Binotto way.
Right. But
it's not the Ferrari way of old, but that's the Mattia way.
But look, so let's say that Ferrari has fixed their issues and they're able to battle with Red Bull legitimately. I honestly feel like, and I think I said this even last year, that Max could win the drivers, but Ferrari's going to win the constructors. And I know the team is going to love that, but man, I feel like that's going to piss off Charles and Carlos.
Well, without a doubt, yeah. I mean, the drivers care about the drivers' championship. Right. The teams, they care about the constructors.
But look,
that's what brings the money at the end of the year.
But let's not kid ourselves. If it's a three-way battle between Max, Charles, and Carlos, I mean, they really have no shot. Because the way Red Bull is set up is they will use Checo to aid Max. And if both the Ferrari drivers were to have a mathematical chance, they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the difference, between the two teams. Is Checo 100% will always be that team guy. And Carlos, you saw, at the British Grand Prix, he's willing to fight that strategic decision.
So you're absolutely right. But I also think Carlos was entirely correct in his assessment of that situation. Because I feel like if he would have hung back, it's like hindsight's 2020, right? So the way he finished that race, like he would have walked away from all of them and left them all and caught Charles anyway. And who knows, maybe Charles winds up on the podium. Maybe he does hold second. Maybe he still winds up in fourth. But I kind of feel like everybody behind Carlos had new tires as well. So it's like, how? I don't know, man. Like, I agree. I felt agreeable with Carlos in that situation. Like, I know what they were thinking, but, bro, like, you're staring down the barrel of a win. Like, there's a time to be smart, and there's a time to be selfish.
And he seems smart, because, there's plenty of times in those wet races where he was like, okay, let's get to the soft tires. And he would make that call, whereas Leclerc's waiting for that call.
So, I think that it kind of goes back to Charles just having faith in the team.
Which was Michael Schumacher's way.
Yeah, 100%. But I think Charles 100% laid his trust in his guys. And, this year it screwed him hard.
That was hard to watch.
And Carlos just didn't do that. And I think there's something to be said for both sides of it. And I also don't think that you'll see Charles do that again if he disagrees with something.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think we will see a much more vocal Charles.
But there's something to be said for, like, just having faith in your team.
Mm-hmm.
So, but on the other hand,
but you have to be very careful with that.
Yeah, no doubt. But on the other hand,
continue to drop the ball.
Carlos was like,
"You have
no, that's dumb. This is how we're gonna do it."
Yeah. They've got to be very careful, because if they continue to screw it up, well, now you have created one of the best drivers on the grid. You've created a situation where he does not trust you anymore, and that's just not good. It's one thing for Carlos to be in the position he is, where he just never really operated like that, to try to get him to that point. But when, Charles is already at that point and you lose it, you've created a whole different dynamic here that's just not good at all for anybody.
So I think Carlos was kind of seeing stars last year in a way, with, finally having a good Ferrari car, finally being on a top team. He's always been stuck in the midfield at McLaren or, down at with Toro Rossi, but he's always been kind of he's never been, so to speak, an alpha of a team, but he's at least always been level with whoever his teammate was. So, and we saw in 2021 beating out Leclerc, but then 2022, Leclerc comes out of nowhere with a force.
Well, look, man, I think Leclerc is a special talent.
Definitely.
I think Leclerc is max
got that
level
it factor.
Talent. I really do. I believe that Leclerc is max levels of talent. Mm-hmm. But he's a couple years behind in terms of his development. And I think that's the difference that you're seeing right now. But I think that Carlos, man, he's not far off, but he kind of goes about his way in it. He kind of goes about it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he doesn't. Leclerc is more aggressive and flash and just kind of like grab the freaking car and just throw it, you know, like and just muscle it around. Like I'm gonna get this lap time, and that was so evident when we went to Coda and we're sitting in the turn 6 grandstand looking back through the S's, right? So we're watching them come in 3, 4, 5, and then we're in 6. And when I tell you Charles, especially in qualifying, freaking slammed this car through that turn, like into that section. I mean, like we heard, like you could hear like all of the bottoming out when they would throw sparks and all. You'd hear just like this little like scrape sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like with these new cars, with these new engines, I'll say new. I mean, they're like 10 years old now, but you don't really hear them coming.
No.
So that's like your first sound that you hear when they enter that section.
You would hear a scrape, and then you heard the tires over the curves. You heard
right.
And then you hear an engine.
When it passed you.
Yeah.
And dude, when Charles came into this section in Q3, you heard bang. Like I'm talking just threw this thing in there. And when I tell you that car was locked in, I mean, like he was never in question of losing control or any, like he just absolutely beasted this car through the section. And Lewis was very much the same way. But Carlos, and we noticed this throughout the whole weekend, was
you could clearly see
like his nickname
where
so
Carlos got the nickname Smooth Operator.
Yeah, he was so fast. He was so fast through there, but it just looked effortless.
Yep.
I mean, and I'm telling you, like it couldn't have been a better setup, like the positioning of this grandstand to look through those S's and Coda. And notice like all these differences between all these drivers.
Yeah.
Max was, I would say, pretty much right there with Charles and Lewis. Those three were clearly the most aggressive in the way they threw the cars into there. But Carlos just had almost like this elegance about the way he drove it through there. But when he came through, it just, even though it was smoother, it just looked so much faster.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh, we're going Stag Junior?
I was going to say, I saw the Stag.
I like it.
I'm going to stick with Buffalo Trace tonight. Yeah, it was very, very clear. You know, and it's one of those things that I didn't expect to see watching these guys come through that section, right? I mean, every one of these guys, from Max and Lewis and Charles all the way down to Latifi, they are the 20 best drivers in the world, arguably.
I think we forget that.
When you get to the bottom, right? Some of them paid their way in, but nonetheless, like, let's not kid ourselves. Even Latifi.
Yeah.
He probably wound up top 40.
Right.
Not right.
But I mean, you know, they are the best in the world.
Top 1%.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and then so with that, you would think like that these guys, you know, they have all the data in the world. They have the best of the best to be able to know exactly what to do, where to do, how to do it. You would think that you would see every single one of them doing the same thing, looking the same, but you could see differences in every one of them. and you could just see a clear difference in the top guys versus the bottom guys in how they would just throw the car around, and just the raw talent that separated all of these top 1% in the world drivers.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the separation within that top 1%, and it was wild. You could see the difference in the top 0.3% and the rest. It was really something to see.
Wow.
It was cool. It was so. It was an amazing place to sit in terms of like watching what these freaking cars can do.
Yes.
But it was terrible in terms of like on track action and passing.
Yeah.
Darn.
Yeah. Like just watching.
But if you want to be blown away
through,
for what these cars do, like that turn 6 grandstand at Coda is the spot to be.
Yep. The rate of the change in direction of these cars is just mind blowing.
And it's like there's no like load up. It's just like, okay, I'm here, now I'm here. Now I'm here, now I'm here.
Right.
Not like, whoa shit. Shit,
Yeah.
I think about that. We have a lot of roundabouts around my area where I live, and I'm always trying to take them in my Ford Escape, like I'm a F1 driver, and going way over here, right? And then you quickly realize that you're not an F1 driver or have an F1 car.
People in Louisiana don't understand how to drive roundabouts.
Yeah, I can do a whole podcast on roundabouts. And
don't
pet
kid
peeves.
Yourself, Frank.
Right.
They don't hear either.
Dude, look, they put in a new roundabout by my house about a year ago, and I don't know, man. It had been there for like 4 months. And I'm sitting there like behind a couple cars waiting to go. And I see this other car coming from like a ways out. And I'm like, man, that dude's carrying a fair amount of speed. And it's like right at dusk, like headlights are on. And I'm like, he's getting closer, he's bearing down. I'm like, that son of a bitch don't see this roundabout. And he's running, he's going, and then all of a sudden, boom!
No.
Dude, he just freaking jumps this thing.
A ramp about.
I mean, jumps this thing. And like the funniest thing, I'm sitting there like pointing like dead at him, and like my headlights catch him. He's in a Honda Accord. My headlights catch him, like his face, like as he hits the curve and just like launches. And he's like looking around like he had no freaking clue. Like, I don't know if he's looking at the phone or what.
He was baked.
He had no idea what happened.
Dude, it's funny, man. You want to talk about like we're really rabbit holing here, but you want to talk about a traffic pattern that will screw with anybody and everybody. The exit off the interstate out here by me, my exit is a crossroads exit. And if you're not familiar with that, it's brilliant and it works phenomenally well. But as you come up to it, before you hit, if you're on the highway and you're the main highway and, interstate is perpendicular to you, before you get to it, the lanes cross and then you drive on the left side of the road.
That's trippy. We have one like that.
Okay, yeah. And then you cross back afterwards. And the whole theory behind it is no matter which way you want to exit or enter onto the interstate, you never have to cross traffic.
Yep.
And there happens to be a Walmart distribution center a little bit past there. So there's a ton of trucks. And dude, it's brilliant. It works so freaking well. But you talk about a total mind fuck.
Yes,
the first time you pull up to it. Right. Look, I'm telling you, when we came to look at this house, I get off the interstate and I follow the signs and I end up at this stoplight. And I'm at the red light and I'm looking and I tell my wife, I'm like, I'm about to be on the wrong side of the road. Like,
that's what it feels like.
Yeah. And like, dude, I'm looking like, where did I go wrong? I'm looking behind me. Like I went where I was supposed to go.
Waiting for the cops to come.
Yeah. And light
How much you
turns
been
green.
drinking?
I'm like, well, we're going. Like, let's see how this,
We're
how
gonna
this
ride it
turns
out.
out. You know? And then I'm like, okay, all right, now it all makes sense. But dude, over the years living here, seeing the people that are sitting like at the light waiting to cross, and then they start going and they don't cross and they just stay on the right side, and then they're staring at a wall of cars at the red light. You know, and now we're all passing by them, so they can't just like throw it in reverse. Dude, that might be
That's how Latifi felt at Suzuka.
yeah, exactly. That is exactly what it is.
That's a perfect way to round about this conversation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So back to F1. There was our people can't drive tangent.
Look, y'all should know now. There's going to be a good point to tie it all together.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So let's wrap Ferrari up.
The speed is there. The pace in the car is there. That was never an issue. Supposedly they fixed their liability. They claim they have. I mean, I guess we're going to believe them.
Oh, they got to prove that.
I mean, you know,
I feel like they've been pretty forthcoming with information and kind of like their whole process.
Well, I mean,
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
The latter part of last year, they had the reliability.
Yep.
Now
they turned it down.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But now is the test of, okay, so they had the reliability once they turned it down. They said they fixed it all. Now they didn't turn it back up last year. Now they've turned it back up. So let's see. You know, based on this past weekend, it looks like that may be the case. I mean, hell,
they said Alfa Romeo was it Alfa Romeo that had the power unit issue? What they claimed, but that actually turned out to be a gearbox issue.
Yeah.
Which it's a Ferrari gearbox, but
it could be
that could easily be something of their own doing.
Right. I mean, look, Ferrari did 416 laps. And the engine, the power unit held together just fine.
Yeah.
So at this point, I mean, I think until proven otherwise, I think we can safely assume that they have fixed the reliability. And until proven otherwise, we'll just kind of go with that as being the case. You know, we know they have the 1 lap pace. We know it's there. Can they hold it over the whole race and really be a challenge to Red Bull weekend after weekend, all race long?
So that's the next part. Did they do enough this offseason with the floor to facilitate what they needed into the tires?
Right.
Because that essentially, even with their engines turned down last year, think about this. Even with their engines turned down last year, they were still faster than Red Bull over 1 lap on average.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get that power back and even let's say they cut the tire deg problem in half from what it was, bro, I think you're looking at a potential challenge to Red Bull right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that at least gets you into a respectable strategy window.
Right.
Which that's the last part of the equation.
Yeah. Yep.
They have made some changes. So can they tie it all together? You know, like we said, they have the benefit of not having to chase pace versus the Red Bull. They're there. If they could tie all these other loose ends together, which I guess it's a lot, but it's kind of not a lot because it's easier to tie these things up, in my opinion, than it is to claw back half a second worth of time.
Mm-hmm.
So strategy should be an easy thing to tie up. You put the right guy in place, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, they have, at the end of the day, that fell on Mattia. He's no longer there. Like, I guess we should give Fred the benefit of the doubt that he's going to handle up on that. That's an easy fix. Like, I'm sorry, but at that level, that should be an easy fix.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And the other two things, we'll see. They've known about them for long enough that I feel like the cost cap is the only thing that prevented them from fixing it last year.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
Yep.
They'll be ready. They'll come turn up for sure.
I genuinely think they'll be in a good spot. Looking over the car, I kind of love what they've done with it in terms of just refining every piece of it, much like Red Bull did. But, every part of the car you can look at compared to last year's and see some significant, some kind of minute differences. But everything's been touched.
Mm-hmm.
And on a car that was as fast and as good as that one was, I feel like that's only going to mean good things. So
yeah,
that'd be good for the fans. Let's hope that happens.
Dude, we need it. We need it to happen because the first half of the season was so freaking good, man.
Yeah, it was.
Even though like Ferrari had their own problems with the reliability at that point and the strategy, like, man, how good was a lot of that racing? I mean, we started off the season, even though Max and Checo DNF'd in Bahrain, we got treated to some unfreaking believable racing between Max and Charles for the lead of a race. We had 5 lead changes in a matter of 3 laps.
Yep.
I mean, that's freaking unprecedented.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The following race.
That right there set the tone, right? That was exactly what these new regs were supposed to do. And dude, come out in the first race and we're seeing that. Like, if that doesn't get you pumped, then just leave F1.
Right.
Exactly.
But we saw that and we're like, holy shit. Like this is what we've been waiting for.
Well, then look, the following race at Saudi, I mean, we had a couple lead changes and Max won by, I think, 0.45 of a second. Charles was tucked under his wing, and had there not been a yellow flag on the penultimate lap, I think we'd have had another swap for a lead. I don't know if Leclerc would have held it out, but I think there would have been another pass. But they had a yellow flag on the main straight when Leclerc was tucked under his wing at the final turn, whatever it is, like turn 45 on that track.
They had a yellow in sector 1.
Yeah. So there was no DRS and there was no passing allowed on down the straight when he came around ready to send one on Max.
From start finish into turn 1, he was under yellow.
Right. And and then Australia, that was kind of, I mean, Charles dominated that. Mm-hmm. Whether Max finished that one or not, I mean, Charles was running away with it. And then Miami. And Imola, that was kind of a thing. That was a weird weekend.
That was a very weird weekend.
Wet.
Yeah.
Massive wet, a little bit wet, drying, all that.
Yeah.
And then Miami.
Charles launching it over the chicane.
Yeah. Then you had Miami, which was, another just thriller. I mean, I don't think you could have started off any better aside from not having the DNFs.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we're going to see a lot of that again this year.
A lot more of the good racing?
Yeah. Between Red Bull and Ferrari.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see.
I hope so.
Except I think you're going to see it be more of a 4-car race opposed to a 2-car race. make no mistake, I think Charles and Max will be clear of the other two, but I think they will be much closer and much more involved.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
all right, let's move this on. So as to reference what you said a couple minutes ago about clawing half a second back, let's talk about Mercedes.
Nice segue.
So I found this picture, and I want to share it on the screen here. Hang on, let me pull this up. And dude, this is brilliant. It is a visual representation of, why will it not? Where's my picture's right there? Why will it not? Okay, there we go. It is a visual representation of one of the reasons why the Mercedes is the way it is. And that's it right there. Look at the airflow on that Red Bull versus the airflow across that Mercedes.
that is wild.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, dude, it's going nowhere on the Mercedes. Like, it's just swirling and turbulent and doing nothing.
And that's what I was telling you earlier, man. That's why I honestly think they're going to hit a steel ceiling with these zero side pods thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Like, I think it was one of those deals where in the lab, it is a breakthrough. It's a scientific marvel. But
Sure.
in actuality, it doesn't work like that. And it just doesn't produce what it says it does on paper.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that right there is representation of it.
But
you know,
to me, I'm just curious why no other team went that route. Like, Williams kind of did, but I feel like that was just because, like, we do what Big Brother does.
Mercedes told us to.
And they abandoned it pretty quick.
Yeah, they did.
But like every other team has been like, yeah, we kind of explored that route, but in theory, it just didn't work for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what did Mercedes see that every other team was like, no, that's not going to work?
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, it is Mercedes, right? And they are brilliant. And clearly there was something to it. But I think when we were talking earlier, Frank, I think you hit it right there. Like, the car, it's just got so much lower of a ceiling of what that design is going to be capable of. And I think you might be onto something. At some point they are going to realize, okay, we are, which I kind of think you would have saw this last year, but apparently not. At some point they are going to be like, all right, we're just spinning our wheels here. So we're not going to get this car any further than where we have it right now. Let's go to plan B, which is the other car that we have sitting in reserve with the other side pod design, and we'll just move forward with that one.
So they've been saying that, I don't know, for the last couple of weeks leading into testing, pretty much since the car launch, that they do have, they have kept developing that original car that we saw at Barcelona testing last year before they unveiled this zero side pods thing.
Yeah. Which, you know what? Hang on. I'm going to cut you off for a second. I never thought about this, but what do you think the possibilities are that their issues last year and their lack of progression? I mean, again, keep in mind, it's Mercedes we're talking about. It's not like this is AlphaTauri or Williams. It's friggin' Mercedes. Their lack of progression last year, they did progress, but they just didn't progress exponentially over their competition to make up ground like they needed to. They were still developing that car. So yet again, we have the cost cap limiting, if they're still sinking money into that, then that severely limits whatever money is still left over that could be sunk into the car that's on track and compromising any better progress, any more progress to close up that gap, which, look, they did close that gap up a little bit at the end of the year. It wasn't as much as what it was made out to be and what people were screaming and shouting that, oh, they're back.
Every week.
A lot of it was circumstantial with,
right.
Other things happening. But nonetheless, they did close the gap some. But
at the beginning of the season, even with all that shit happening in Brazil, they wouldn't have been able to win that race.
Yeah.
They progressed a kind of absurd amount last year. But I kind of feel like, I don't know, I don't know to what extent that they've been developing this other thing, but I do know that they developed two concepts enough to run both of them within a week of each other or 2 weeks of each other, whatever it was, Barcelona and Bahrain last year. So that, I feel like that is a definite limiting factor to either or, whichever one they would have chose to go with.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how dependent the side pod design is on the height of the floor. Because it didn't seem like they accounted for the possible porpoising before testing last season, and they had already made that side pod design. So, like you said earlier, whatever they saw in that design that they thought that was going to be so good, it sounded like they didn't account for the porpoising and that it possibly worked better with the lower floor. Now that the floor is raised, it almost makes it seem like it's making that side pod design ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, man, but the irony of that is because, like, the look of that to me just like screams ground effects, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really does, man. It just kind of flows. That son of a bitch looks like it's screwed to the ground. But the irony of the whole situation is Toto was the one pushing the envelope more than anybody to get this freaking technical directive.
Yep.
About raising the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was.
You know what I mean?
Because they couldn't engineer their way out of it.
Which I absolutely freaking hate.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that they intervened in the middle of the year. Like, if you want to do something about it in the off season, that's one thing. The middle of the year is absolute bullshit.
Yeah. Well, it's bullshit all the way around. And we've covered this numerous times, but I'm all for going back into it. Like, other teams figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible, right? Okay, you have to raise your car. Suck it up. Design a better car.
As Christian Horner would say.
Bro, so I'm assuming you got into Drive to Survive this weekend.
I got into a few of the episodes, but definitely that good part.
Yeah.
Change your fucking car.
Yes.
Right.
To quote Christian. Yeah.
You change your fucking car.
But it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, and Toto's like, even Checo says your car is fucked. And he's like, we're like, dude, Checo was killing it in the beginning of the season last year.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure he's not complaining. That's the best car he's ever been in.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think it's interesting the way they go about it. They had all of a sudden Lewis Hamilton was very vocal about how his back was hurting and he might not make the next race. And so
I think Baku was a setup. At the time, I wasn't so sure, but after seeing that, I think Baku was a setup. The way he could barely get out of the car.
It was sus, for sure. Sus.
Oh yeah. And it was I don't know, man. I absolutely hate that they put a rule change mid-season on something that clearly can be figured out.
Yeah.
And look, even the team that didn't figure it out, Ferrari had bad porpoising, but at that point in time, they were the fastest car.
Yeah.
But, I mean, staying on that porpoising topic, the Ferrari porpoising was very different than everybody else's. Like the amplitude of it, or not even the well, I don't know about the amplitude. It was the frequency of it was much different. It was much slower. You know, it may very well have been just as violent. You know, the amplitude may have been the same, but theirs was so much slower. And by so much, I mean, we're probably talking thousandths of a second, hundredths of a second, but you could visually see it. You know, while everybody else was just going like crazy, theirs was kind of just like more of like just a
more of a deeper impact.
Riding a wave. Yeah.
It was kind of wild though. Like,
I think that's one of the reasons why they did not have as much, the drivers did not have as much of an issue with it, was because the way theirs did it, it made it much easier to just deal with it and kind of drive through it.
It was funny though, man. Like you would see these pictures of Leclerc's head like bouncing around like this, and then like the onboard, like the visor cam that he had, you'd see it going, like they'd go to it when he's going down the straight, and it's like I can't even tell where the steering wheel is.
Yeah,
and like
but
he
then
would
you
do
talk
an
to him
interview.
after.
He would do an interview after the race or after like a practice session or whatever, and he's like, "No, I mean, like, yeah, like you feel it a little bit, but it doesn't, I mean, it's fine. Like it doesn't bother me at all."
Yeah,
and I'm like, bro, I couldn't even read the billboard with 40-foot letters on the TV.
Yeah,
you know, but the insane thing about it was the second, like. I'm trying to remember. I think it was at Australia where they had a section where it was like a wrapping straight and the porpoising was getting pretty bad. And then you hit a pretty high speed turn. The second they loaded that car, it just locked in. I mean, and it went away and it was just on rails.
And you know, speaking of testing, they congratulations, no porpoising for Mercedes.
Yeah.
Man, go figure.
Now Mercedes
they
is
raised their
actually
car
claiming
because they had to,
right?
And the porpoising went away.
I saw Mercedes is claiming that Red Bull is running their car 10 millimeters lower than what they're supposed to.
Never
saw that. I saw like 3 different places publish that story today.
Toto and Horner going at it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's gonna be a feud for the ages.
Oh man.
Yeah. And man, it's great watching them two go at it.
Oh yes, it is.
And like Toto gets all worked up, and like Christian is just always like so just even keel. Like he occasionally does get worked up, but generally speaking, he's just like so like just kind of rolls with it, and he's got these like passive aggressive comments, but you know, nothing comes out like elevated tone.
He's not emotional about it.
Yeah.
No. But he's, man, like Christian just he has Toto's number in terms of that. Like it's like the little brother, right?
That's what I was thinking too.
But like he just knows the buttons to push.
Yeah.
But
yes, I do.
You know,
I was waiting for that.
But Toto, for the longest time, was reacting from a position of power and superiority. All of a sudden, this year, the shoe's on the other foot. And I don't think he knew how to handle that very well. You know what I mean? Like, before it was always like, whatever, say what you want, little man. We're going to kick your ass on the track.
Right.
Like that. I mean, that's essentially, I'm not quoting, but kind of like paraphrasing exactly what he said.
Yeah, that was the attitude he carried.
He's pretty much said it in maybe not those exact words, but like, pretty close to it. But
speaking of that, I think we need to bring back the ability for the team principals to talk on the radio to the stewards, because that was entertaining.
No, I disagree on that one.
Okay.
Like
I don't know how I feel about that. I think that whole situation is fucked.
There is too much of a distraction with that. Like as the chief steward, you have to be able to make a decision, and your decisions are based on safety. Yep. Right? Every decision you make, it is first and foremost based on safety. Safety of the drivers, but more importantly, it's focused on safety of the track marshals and being able to tend to a driver that may or may not be in a compromised position or just stalled. But first priority is safety of the marshals. And, when you have team principals in your ear yelling and screaming about do it this way, do it that way, do this, you cannot make a sound judgment. You cannot focus on what is really important, because you are trying to take what they're saying in.
Right.
Regardless if you don't want to, if they're there, you're hearing it, and you cannot make the decision the way the decision is supposed to be made. Now,
that's a good point.
That is in an incident scenario. There's plenty of other scenarios where, they would be in his ear about various things. And I still hold that same line where I don't think they should have the communication directly with him, for the same reason. It may not be because he needs to make a decision based on safety or whatever. It may be, hey, they're doing something illegal, or they weren't supposed to do whatever they just did, and that's fine. If they give them a line of communication, they can report it to whoever, and that person, when it is relevant, will relay it to race control. I don't think they should have direct line of communication. I think all it does is muddy the waters and screw things up.
Good for entertainment, bad for business.
Yeah.
I think
and that's
Mercedes,
one of the things, right? Like everything over the last number of years has shifted to entertainment focus.
Yeah.
And it's all about putting on a show. And a lot of people love that. But I think I'm accurate in saying that most of us despise that. I don't want you to put on a show. I want to see racing. The racing is the show, and I think that's where they have really kind of lost sight, is gearing things way too much towards just being an entertainment business.
I think that whole situation, people are going to hate me for saying this, but I think it really got blown out of proportion with Massey. I don't think it should have cost him his job. And anybody that says that last year was handled better than what he did is just blatantly biased to Mercedes. I think Massey did as good of a job as he could have given the situation.
Yeah.
I think that last year was an absolute clusterfuck of just no experience.
Yeah.
And it's not this whole like alternating
Oh, dude, the
panel
alternating panel of stewards, that's a joke.
of stewards
I
and
agree.
race directors and all that is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Like, we've said this over and over. I've said this over and over. Like, I feel the same way about NFL and SEC and like Power 5 football referees. Y'all make hundreds of millions and millions of dollars. Have a professional staff of referees full time that you pay them good salaries and all they do is train for this job.
Yep.
Because the same thing with the stewards. Like, have a panel of, I don't know, how many are on each race?
Oh, is it 5?
5?
I'm not sure.
Let's go with 5.
Let's call it 5. Okay, so have a panel of, I don't know, 8. Because, like, you need backups, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for whatever reason. Have 8 to 10, but have that be their job. Like, Formula One's a long enough season where you could justify that being a job. Formula One makes a shit pile of money. Pay each of these guys a decent salary and have that be their job. Mm-hmm. They study it. They study all the precedents. They study everything about it, and they're good at it. They get good at it. Having new people all the time is never going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
We're getting way out of line here. We need to continue down the road. Look, I think Mercedes is going to have a really rough start to the year. I think that they're going to be in a similar place to where they started last year.
Yeah, I don't think this year is going to be any different for them. I think we're going to see one of two things happen. Either they're going to be in the same position with this car and they're going to face the same problems and they're not going to make up any ground, or they're going to abandon this car and switch to the other one. And no, they're not starting from square one because they've supposedly still been developing it, but more or less they are starting from square one with a new car midway through the season, third of the way through the season, whatever. And that's not going to benefit you in this particular season either. Either way, I don't see them being back at the front, back in the fight. You know, again, maybe there's the one-off like, you know, they had last year. They're, you know, situationally dependent on something happening in front of them and they can capitalize. I mean, I think they will continue to be in a position to where if something happens in front of them, they will be able to capitalize. They will be there, you know, but I think that's going to be about it. I don't think it's going to be much different from what we saw last year out of them.
I think everybody's waiting for Mercedes to come back, and it's kind of like Daddy going to the gas station, but he's not coming home this season.
Man, look, I feel like last year they made an insane amount of progress. And look, I was kind of like jumping on that bandwagon. Like, dude, they made a lot of progress throughout the course of a season. Like, it was very impressive. But I was still like battling within myself. Like, dude, there's no way they can claw back that amount of time to legitimately get back to the front in one off season. It can't happen. And then they come out and they have such a roller coaster testing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, like that, man, they're just not there. They just still have a lot of serious problems with this car that they're just not there. And I still think it's going to be a significant amount of time before they are, if they are.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they will. I feel like they will at some point, but I kind of don't feel like it's going to be this year.
Maybe they'll pull a Red Bull and it'll be the last season of these regs.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, these regs are short, man. I mean, all right, we got this year, and we only had 2 years of these regs after that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well, aerodynamically, maybe not. I
Right.
think they'll have some changes, but
it's not going to be another drastic change like we saw here.
right. But I mean, the thing is, it's a new engine
Right.
deal,
Which
so that
could
resets the
change.
field.
Yeah, that changes everything. But yeah, so I mean, all right. Well, that's Merc. Let's kick this on down the line. Let's talk about Alpine.
They looked
Michael,
stiff over the
what you
weekend.
thought? Yeah,
They looked stiff. I mean, they looked painfully average to me, but everybody seemed happy. But the car just looked stiff. It looked like it wasn't taking the corners smooth. It wasn't, going in and out of the corners, out of the exit. It just didn't seem smooth to me at all. But Alpine was pretty consistent last year. They had a few reliability issues with Alonso's car, but points wise, they were right there.
yeah.
So if they're leading the mid as far as midfield's concerned, I mean, I think they're right where they want to be. And you said Gasly has a higher ceiling, so
I like Gasly.
I think hell, old Esteban, he was talking, with some confidence in the car.
Yeah.
What we saw and what he was saying seemed like two different things.
Yeah, that's what I was saying too.
But and there's been a lot of talk of were they holding back or were they not showing what the car really had or
So I feel like if there's one team that you could legitimately make a case for, not necessarily sandbagging, but just not really showing, just not, I don't know, like not going for that showtime, it would be Alpine. I think that based on where they finished last year, like that was a strong car last year.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think they could take a significant step back. I mean, they were clear of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Even the McLaren, in terms of the pace of their car.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lando set that car apart and kept McLaren in the fight. But in terms of just comparing the two cars, the Alpine was way better.
For sure.
Way better off than the McLaren. So I kind of feel like they probably had their own agenda that they wanted, much like Ferrari, that they wanted to get through and do and find out and figure these things out. And they just went about their business and wasn't really concerned with what other people were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect them to be in the fight for best of the rest at the beginning of this season.
Yeah,
definitely.
Much where they left off last year.
Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting thing with Alpine is going to be the driver pairing and how that plays out.
Apparently they didn't like each other.
Oh, they hate each other.
Right.
Yeah. And and me and Frank have talked about this, Ocon does not have a good track record with any teammates ever. But especially him and Pierre, like they despise each other.
Yeah, they go way back.
Yeah. So I they've gotten older, they've matured, right? Like all that started when they were kids in karts and whatnot. And I'm sure that to an extent they've both matured enough to be able to put things aside. But dude, I mean, if it goes that far back and it's that deep, you can't just turn it off.
Right.
And then we've seen, we saw last year, we saw Ocon make some moves against Alonso.
Yeah, that
kind of made all of us like, oof.
What?
Like, dude, you are doing that to the wrong guy. If there is
the Darth Vader of F1.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of those same moves towards Gasly. But
Gasly seems a little reckless to me, So that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's. I don't know. I don't know that I would necessarily call him reckless. I think he's had some times where, yeah, there was definitely some questionable things.
Who's that?
You know, I would
Gasly.
I would more so. I mean, something reckless I would classify as intentional, and I don't know that I can recall any time where something like that was intentional or even appeared that way. But I mean, I don't disagree that there were some questionable.
It just seemed like he would dive down a lot and not make it, and then screw the other driver. So
I would call it savage, not reckless.
Okay.
I think
keep in mind
that whole
he was Max's
down,
teammate.
Yeah, that whole diving down thing. I don't disagree there. However, I think, and I've talked about this before, with that has kind of just become the new way to pass somebody, and I hate it. And I think, with the way that the who has the right to the corner rules are written and whatnot, all it does is encourage these freaking dive bombs.
They're just asking him to do it.
Yeah. And
I hate it.
And I can't blame, in this instance, can't blame Pierre, because that's, the rules say, like, that's how you earn the right to that corner. That's what you're going to have to do to get it. So you do it.
Well, him and Russell are cut from the same cloth in that
yeah,
area.
I was about to say that. Like, there was one, I think it was in France last year, when Russell, like, just, it was in a chicane, just stuck it up the inside. I don't remember who it was. Maybe
probably
it was
Checo.
No, I don't.
One of the times was Checo. I can't remember which one that was.
God damn it, I don't remember who this particular instance was. But I mean, George just sent it. Like, he wasn't even remotely close.
He wasn't even there.
No, like, he wasn't even remotely close to this.
But in his head, he's there.
Yeah.
But he was, like, quoting the rules after all the contact and everybody spun out and all. And he's like, hey, I mean, my tire was inside. Like, I had that was my corner. And, like,
and
to me,
based
I'm
on
like,
the letter of the law,
bro, I'm not, that wasn't
right.
even close. Well, I don't think he was. Like, I think even in that situation, like, he was still way off.
Was he? I don't remember that specific instance.
But it just proves the point. Like, that's what this rule and this ruling is causing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, people to just, like, these drivers just think, like, I'm just going to send one and claim that I had it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I think that has caused, a lot of what we see.
I wonder if Otmar will let those two race this year, like he did Alonso and Ocon.
I don't think he had any control over Alonso, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I think if I'm Otmar, right? Obviously, everybody knows their history. I think if it's me, I'm sitting both of them down and being like, look, I will let y'all race, but the very second I see it crossing a line, y'all will both be told to back off. And if you don't, one of y'all's walking home. Like, you're not you're not riding with
That's
us.
how we
right?
grew up.
like just, put the fear in them. Like, I'm not messing around. If I tell y'all to knock it off, you better knock it off, because I think it's pretty evident that it would come to blows between them two. If anybody, it would be them two.
Netflix is hoping so.
Yeah, right. No kidding. So,
hey, it was Checo.
Yeah, I remember just from the anger I felt.
Yeah, it was Checo.
It's just that Russell never thinks he does anything wrong, so it's that's frustrating to me. It's one thing to cause it, like Ricardo when he crashed Sainz, but he was already apologetic immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas Russell's like, no, what's he even doing there? It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Another one, like what with Russell and Sainz at Coda at
Yep.
turn 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor Signs.
Dude, Sainz had some terrible freaking luck this year.
He had to pay into the karma gods. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But,
I mean,
look, I'll give my last words on Alpine. I think they will be. I think they'll be very consistently strong.
Yeah.
You know, look, I've been a huge fan of Gasly from the jump. I think it was just a terrible situation at Red Bull. I absolutely love the way he came out of it in AlphaTauri and just absolutely took advantage of the situation at hand and just dominated it. You know, and
then they came out with a shit car.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah, but I feel like by that time, he was already who he needed to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm just
Like,
saying, like, he grew as a driver, as a leader. You know, he grew. And then when the team really needed to step it up for him, they didn't. They kind of let him down on their side of it.
But, man, I think in our first ever podcast that we did, I was lobbying for Pierre Gasly to get a better drive.
Yes.
Because I think I was just so impressed with the way he handled that horrible situation and demotion from Red Bull. The way he just absolutely just like had to have this look in the mirror moment where he's like, I'm going to fucking dominate this situation. And did it. You know, made the absolute best of it. Looked like an absolute killer the second he went back to AlphaTauri.
Yep.
Definitely.
And I think that was a situation that could have so easily gone the opposite direction and just absolutely crumbled his career.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy for him to get a much better drive. And I think he's going to absolutely relish this situation. And I think he's going to smash Ocon this year.
Yeah.
I hope so.
to be honest, I think he will. And I think that right there is going to feed the fire that there already is between them. Because Ocon is going to feel like he's got tenure there and that he is, you know, the number one guy there. And I really do think Gasly's going to come out and just outperform him. And I think it's going to cause even more tension.
Yeah, I wonder if Red Bull's going to try to get him back if he does really good this year. Not sure how long his contract is, but
I don't think so. I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
I think Red Bull and Mercedes are going to be in a punching match for Lando Norris after next year. Because check this out. Lewis Hamilton and Checo's contract end after next year.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Lewis is going to be done after next year. Like I just had that feeling. I feel like he'll give it enough time unless after next year, Mercedes is legitimately in a position to fight for world titles and haven't already gotten there and him gotten his 8th. I think he's going to hang it up after next year. I don't think Red Bull re-signs Checo after next year, after this contract is up.
I think it'll be mutual. He's been talking a lot last season about needing more family time. And then if they keep adding more races, he's not going to be there.
Yeah.
So I think that shows that right there. It'll be a mutual.
I think Red Bull and Mercedes are going to be an absolute bidding war for Lando Norris because I don't see he is that guy, right?
Yeah, he is.
And he thought he had a great position. We all did. Thought he had a great position getting in early with McLaren. who is freaking McLaren, right? But turns out they're just still shit. We thought they had it going in the right way, but
they
here's
were
the
still
perfect
shit.
transition into them.
Yeah,
They
even worse
are
looking
in for a rough year.
Yes.
Ironically, they still have the same freaking problems they had at Bahrain last year. They have front cooling issues, or front adhesion issues, or some kind of bullshit with the wheel brows not staying attached.
Yeah. They were coming loose.
How elementary is that?
Yeah.
Which just sucks for Piastri, finally getting into the drive, and then he gets the least laps of any driver.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like McLaren is the kind of outfit that it is 100% unacceptable to not be able to go to a test and even complete the amount of laps that you want to complete.
McLaren reminds me of the ex-girlfriend or for a girl, ex-boyfriend, where they say they're going to change and baby, just give me one more chance, and just same old story.
Yeah.
They changed for 2 weeks and you see Lando fight for podium and then bam, right back down.
Yeah.
But you see, I'm of the opposite perspective. I'm feeling like how could you have changed this much? Like the whole time we were dating in the first 10 years we were married, you were incredible. Like
right?
You were the best person on this earth. And then what the hell happened? Like where did this go wrong? How did you change? What? Like you have changed. Like it's not me, it's you.
It's not me, it's you.
Absolutely.
Looking at it as in the bigger picture, going further back with McLaren, I would be on board with that. Looking at it in a more short term, Michael, I think you're right. Like it's, they have to know that Lando is getting fed up. Like
right.
he came in there, he thought he had a great thing, and they know the talent that he is. And I agree with you. I think at this point they're probably doing that. Like, look, give me one more chance. Give me one more chance. We'll change.
Yep. It makes you wonder if they're already anticipating that with how aggressively they went after Piastri and the way Zach Brown has already touted him as a future world champion. It makes you wonder,
Well, in all fairness, I feel like with the way Ricardo was performing, I think that was the right move regardless.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you had to make a move, and if Piastri was available, which he turned out to be, I mean, if you're going after young talent, I mean, I don't think there was any question as to which one to get.
Yeah.
Although I was kind of thinking that they would go after Gasly. Like the Piastri thing was just like, that was completely under the radar. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody. I said it at the beginning of the season, I thought that McLaren was going to sign Gasly. I thought that was going to be the seat that opened up because I think Ricardo was in too much hot water already. Like I just didn't see that contract really playing itself out. And I felt like Gasly was on such an ascent that one, he deserved it, but like who else on the grid would you have wanted as a up and comer? But somebody still with a fair amount of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was kind of the guy, right?
That's a good point.
So I really felt like he was going to be the one, and that would have been a clean signing.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest, I kind of feel like Alpine came out on top on that one. at least in the short term. I mean, we don't know what Piastri is going to wind up being. You know, everybody's comparing him to Russell and Leclerc, and I don't know about that, man. That's
That's a lofty
that's some awful high
comparison.
praise.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has that drive, just the way that Leclerc and Verstappen are both so cutthroat with "I want to eat you alive."
Dude,
I don't see it from Piastri. He seems more like a Mick Schumacher who has skill, showed he could win F2, F3, but Mick doesn't have that just take your throat out like Michael did.
That killer instinct.
I love that comparison, dude. I freaking love that comparison because you're exactly right. Like everybody wants to, and I've been saying that about Mick. Like everybody wants to know if Mick is this and Mick is that. Mick is not Michael. Michael was a fucking animal.
Yeah,
and he would cut your freaking legs out from underneath you,
chase
in
you
a
down
heartbeat
after the
and not
race.
even think about it. He wouldn't think twice about it. Max is the same way.
Yeah.
Charles is the same way. Lewis is the same way. Yep. Lewis is pretty polished in how he PRs himself.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, he's the same way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the young guns go, Max and Charles have that. Yep. And it's apparent. And they've had it since they were in karting.
Yep.
Yes.
You can go back and watch those karting interviews from them too, and they're savages then.
Yeah, they were.
And like some of these other guys, like Mick don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't think Piastri has that. I'm not saying he can't be as good, but I don't think he has that portion of what I think it takes to be a great.
A great, yeah.
That seems to be the difference. When David brought up earlier, top 1% of the drivers, we're seeing them right now. The difference between those top ones, it seems to be that killer instinct, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, McLaren is, I think
they're going to be a train wreck this year.
I think, I was going to go with dumpster fire.
I don't know how to sugarcoat it.
Yeah. Now, here's the question, though. They started off last year looking just as terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they made some changes, got some things fixed, and we're right there in the battle with Alpine for 4th and 5th. Do y'all think that is possible again? Do you think that they will remedy the situation and at least be fighting for best of the rest? Or
I don't think they remedied the situation. In hindsight, I think Lando Norris remedied the situation.
Yeah, make no mistake, Lando carried them all the way through.
I think where Daniel, the points that Daniel scored, I think was a much more representative place for where that car belonged.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think with the way the car is now, do you think it is even capable of allowing Lando to do that again?
Yeah, I think Lando can do that. I think he'll do what he does.
Right, but do you think
that all depends? That all depends on the rest of the field. That kind of doesn't matter. I think Lando is capable of putting that car where, like, in the same place, but it depends on where the rest of the field is. Like we're gonna get into, I think Aston Martin's gonna be a problem for them this year.
Yes.
If Alpine doesn't have the reliability issues, that's going to be another problem.
Yeah. I don't think Aston Martin's going to be a problem for McLaren. I don't think it's going to be any of their concern. I think they're going to be ahead of them. And it'll be a problem as far as pushing them further back down the ranks, but I don't think it'll be a problem as far as like direct competition.
That's what I'm saying, though. Aston Martin's going to be better?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So like that, then that's less points available.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that Piastri is going to represent roughly, after seeing this weekend and how much he struggled with that car.
Yeah.
In comparison to Lando, I feel like Piastri's going to be, he's kind of going to represent the same amount of points as what Ricciardo had in his rookie year. And I don't think that's an unrealistic, like, I don't think that's a unreasonable ask of him. Like, he's a rookie. He's never been in F1 before. There's a learning curve. And I'm sorry, when you have a shit car, the learning curve can hurt sometimes when you got when you got a badass MFer next to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I like how Lando he's consistent when he says he doesn't show any sympathy. So, when Ricciardo got cut, zero sympathy.
And that right there is what tells me that he has what it takes. He has that instinct at the top.
Yeah.
He's not the guy that is in the media at this point showing that killer, but I think he's got it. And I think once they get to the front, I think he'll be a little more comfortable showing it in the media.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Or maybe not once they get to the front. Once he gets to the front, no matter what colors it is.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a Red Bull, but
yeah. So
and we'll just caveat that with my reasoning why I think Lando is going to wind up at Red Bull, and I think they'll win the bidding war between them and Mercedes, because Max has made it pretty abundantly clear that he's not going to be an F1 lifer. For a while, I was thinking that Lando was going to replace Lewis. But the more I think about it, they got George. I think George is going to be around for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think F1 is what he wants to do for as long as he possibly can. Max has made it very clear that it is not. He's going to win the championships that he can. And when he's had enough, and he's getting out. He's publicly said, I'm not going to be a Fernando or a Lewis or whatever. Like, early 30s, I'm probably done.
I think it's interesting that when they asked him, what two drivers would you pick on your team if you were team principal? And he said Lando and Alonso.
Yeah. I mean, part of that's always hard to ask like a current driver, because like he's obviously not going to say Charles because that's his main competition now. Right. He's not going to say Lewis because I genuinely don't think they like each other.
No, they don't.
I think they respect each other. No. I don't think they like each other at all.
I know. You see that in the cool down rooms.
Yeah.
But like, from like their whole progression through karting and everything, like I don't think there's a better person on the grid that he's come up with, or not necessarily come up with, but Leclerc has always been there in his face.
Yep.
They didn't like each other much when they were kids, but they've grown up, and I think they're at a good point now in terms of like and respect, and just like they're not gonna be best friends, but I think they're cool.
Yeah.
But he's obviously not gonna say him. He's his main competition. But nonetheless, I think Lando is that dude, man.
I agree.
He's that next guy.
Yep.
And in Drive to Survive this year, that I think I'm on episode 6 from this year, but Christian's made a couple of like hints at Lando, right? And they even had like a little bit of like iffiness on Checo, which we all kind of felt, but they did a very good job of keeping it quiet throughout the season. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Yeah. I think Lando winds up at Red Bull because Max is not as long of a term prospect as Russell is. because Max is going to win a bunch of championships and he's going to peace out and, enjoy the hell out of his life with all his money and his yachts and his planes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I agree there. All right, let's move this along. We already getting to be a little long here,
Damn, I just looked at that time.
and feel like there's a good little bit to go into with Aston Martin.
Let's just rough Alfa Romeo. They look quick. They don't look great.
They look. I think they're another one of the teams that kind of just looks like they did last year, and I think I kind of expect the same thing. Like, they didn't look terrible. They didn't look great. I think they're going to be round about the same spot they were last year, with the occasional Bottas sticking it up a little higher than expected.
They kind of caught your eye. Yeah. They kind of caught your eye a little bit in testing, but it's I feel like it's just kind of one of those headline grabbers, right? We went and stuck some lap times in there, but it's not really, we're not really there.
I think Alfa Romeo comes down to one thing, is the reliability. We saw so many DNFs last year. Yeah. And as far as competing in the midfield, they'll be there if they don't have the reliability issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, they're gonna be in the middle to the back of the midfield. I think they're gonna be roundabout there with the AlphaTauri and the Haas. Again, the occasional chuck it up there and have a fantastic weekend out of Bottas, and maybe Joe, pulls out a couple of those across the season, but I don't see much change over what we saw last year.
Besides Valtteri's mullet and his mullet helmet.
Right? Dude, that helmet is freaking awesome.
Awesome.
It
is.
Yeah.
I'm taking the mullet too. I think that's badass.
He'd be a fun guy if you guys ever get to the point to bring on to the podcast, because he just seems like a riot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Him and his naked photos.
That's right. He's a strange one, man.
Right?
That whole angle that they played on Netflix with that last year, it was man, this is getting weird.
It was like the Mercedes side chick, they knew they were dating. They knew they were dating Russell, but you still got your side chick. He lives in the same area. You're gonna see every day,
right? Man,
I agree. I think they'll be to the back of the midfield, maybe towards the middle of the midfield.
Yeah.
Maybe the track dependents stick it up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, back there with them, I think a hair behind AlphaTauri. The car does not look great. On top of that, which I've been saying, I think is going to be one of their larger problems, and I think it's going to lead to a lack of development from the car, is their driver pairing. You've got Yuki, who is just not ready to be the lead guy. I like Yuki, and I think he has shown that he wants this, right? The lifestyle changes and the things he has done to show this is what I want. I will do what's necessary. I think that's awesome. I just don't think he's there yet in a position to really lead a team and be that number one guy. And I think we're just going to see with their driver pairing, we're going to see a lack of development, and it's going to be due to that.
I'm excited about De Vries. I think that he does need, like you said, someone more of a leader to help with that development. Because in that Williams last year, he looked great subbing in for Albon.
Yeah. I'd probably look good in a Williams too.
I mean, it was nice to
But,
see him outperform Latifi.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
You
stuck
know,
it into points.
yeah, he did. Like not by any means trying to take anything away from DeVries there. Like I think
At
DeVries
Monza,
is
which is a track that, if nothing else, it takes freaking balls to be fast at.
right.
no doubt.
I think it's too bad
DeVries
he's in an AlphaTauri.
I think he's going to do good given what he's got to work with.
Yeah.
You know, rookie year, the car you've got to work with, I think he's going to do fine. I just don't think the team as a whole is going to go anywhere.
So I think Alfa Romeo, Haas, AlphaTauri, and Williams are kind of going to be their own little pack this year.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I like that.
Like I think at any point, any week, I mean, time will tell, and we'll figure it out after the first few races as to kind of what cars like what kind of tracks. But I think that's going to be what kind of rotates the order.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just the different track tendencies that each car likes. I feel like, look, I might be wrong. One of these guys might jump out the box and really stick it up in with Alpine and Aston Martin. And look, I think out the gate, maybe McLaren might be in that. At least Piastri is going to be in that mix as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You know, I feel like all of them are kind of in the same boat. I think Haas and Alfa Romeo have a higher ceiling, but it's just how much can they access that, right? Like how much can they actually get out of it? And if they start out well, how long is it going to last? Are they actually going to develop it through the season, or is it just going to be like another,
what we saw with Alfa Romeo last year, where they came out pretty strong, and then they just kind of steadily went backwards because they just were not developing at the rate of everybody else. You know,
same thing with Haas.
Yeah, that's perfectly said by both of you. They just fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree. I think those teams will be kind of all lumped together. You know, Williams in there as well, and I think McLaren will be. Yeah, I think Piastri will be in there. And man,
I think peaks and valleys. You're going to see peaks and valleys with McLaren, and they're going to float back and forth between the midfield and the backfield.
Man, to be honest, like I think primarily we'll see Lando up there in the midfield, Piastri at the backfield. But given how bad the car looks, I don't know how much of a challenge Lando will present to the midfield.
Bro, I mean,
he will be there, but
there was even races last year where it was everything he could do to finish 13th.
Right.
Yep.
You know? So, I mean, and that's what we kind of said in our earlier episodes talking about McLaren is like, we want to see him take that floor and just raise it. You know, like, you don't have to necessarily
not the floor of the car.
Raise your ceiling that much to make significant progress, but you just got to bring that floor up where, you know, when you have a bad weekend, maybe it's for 9th and 10th opposed to DFL.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
Like, because that's what it was last year.
To where your bad weekend is still resulting in possible points. If it's not points, it was there. Like just barely missed out on it. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and since we're at the back of the pack and we're an American podcast, got to give a shout out to Logan Sargent, first American in a while for F1. So
absolutely.
I think as long as he keeps the car on track, unlike Latifi, you know, it'll be a success for him.
It'll be a win.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's in a good place, man.
Yeah.
I don't think
they're trending up.
I don't think there's a ton of like unrealistic expectations at Williams.
right.
that he's going to have to live up to. I think it's a good place for him to develop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, much like Russell did. Like Russell was kind of in a no-lose situation. You know, like you come in and if you're shit, like you can easily just blame it on the car.
Right.
You know, like what am I supposed to do with this thing? What do you expect? Let me drive that Mercedes. Oh, look, I'm fast.
Right.
You know, I mean, so it's kind of like this. I feel like it's kind of the same thing right now. Albon's maybe I think he'll make it a little more difficult than what it was. But because I think Albon has kind of steadied the ship in terms of like creating the standard for Williams. And he was just very consistent last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like Albon got out of that car what it was worth each week.
He did good with no expectations.
Yeah. So, but either way, I still feel like Sargent's in a good position in terms of that because I don't think Williams demands a ton either out of their rookie drivers.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be good for him, and I think it'll be a good building year, and we'll kind of see what he's made of and see if he's got what it takes to be in F1 long term.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, let's kind of close this thing out with Aston Martin because I think they were the shining star of testing, and if anybody showed themselves to have made significant progress over the winter, it was them.
Yep.
And we kind of set the table for that before we even saw them in testing with just kind of how they've been building everything, right? Just all the steps that were happening within that organization. And it's all because of Lawrence Stroll.
Mm-hmm.
That dude.
Deep pocketbooks.
Not only deep pocketbooks, but that dude knows how to build a winning organization business-wise. He knows it's about the
whether
people.
it's a race team or a clothing company or what. Exactly. He knows how to build a business.
He understands the process of building it.
Yep.
And I feel like, you know, we talked about this quite a bit. They've been just putting those building blocks one at a time. And you've seen a little bit of progress, some up and downs, but just the groundwork that they were laying, you knew it was eventually it's going to pay off, right? Like it's going eventually, all these things that they're building up to are going to connect. And man, it's looking
good.
It's looking very, very positive.
Yeah.
Like I'm not ready to say that they're going to fight at the front, but I think podiums aren't out of the question. And I think Mercedes needs to be looking over their shoulder,
especially that first race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they appeared to have fantastic race pace, very little deg. You know, I mean, it looks promising for them for this year. And like, man, to keep on with kind of where you're at with Lawrence Stroll and the way he operates and knowing how to build a business, I think what really shows that, you know, right in the front, at the forefront, is what he does, who he selects for his drivers. You know, I mean, he right off the bat, he pulls Seb, you know, a multi-world champion, you know, veteran here, and is just going to utilize everything he can, you know, make it awesome for Seb, you know, somebody that's at the end of their career, give them a place where they can be happy, you know, unlike where he was at Ferrari. And really extract every bit of advice and knowledge and info he can and have him help them build this thing. Seb retires. Oh, let's get Fernando. He's unhappy where he's at. Let's give him a place. Let's give him a bunch of money and let's give him a place where he can be happy and he's, well respected. He's going to be utilized. He's going to have some purpose because he can really contribute to this thing because we're going to listen to what he says, and all the meanwhile, my son is going to be learning from these veteran world-class drivers, like I think he's done a fantastic job of who he's put into place. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we seem to be seeing that year after year. Well, I say year after year. I mean, after last year and then now coming into this year, it really seems to be looking promising.
I'm excited to see Alonso in that Aston Martin, and it didn't show points wise that he was the king of the midfield, but he was consistently that guy that was right behind the top six.
Yeah, I'm always excited. I mean, I'm an Alonso fan.
Yeah,
I'm always excited to see him with the possibility of a good car and up there fighting. So I think he made a very good move.
Yes.
I mean, had it not been for the reliability, he wiped the freaking floor with Ocon.
No kidding.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's such a shame. Like of all the teammate comparisons, it's such a shame that he wound up behind Ocon in points because, bro, like the peaks that Alonso had, bro, he had that car fighting in podiums and for the lead of races on merit.
Yep.
Not by some crazy thing where Bottas goes bowling and takes out 7 cars. Right. I mean.
And he's unpassable.
Right.
Yeah.
He was the leader of all those DRS trains.
Yep.
Man, I mean,
and he wants to punish you. I love that.
Oh, he's relentless, man, and he's cutthroat, and he is the.
It's like, I'm going to ruin these guys' races right behind me. McLaren wants to get points today. I'm going to ruin their race.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think Alonso finally made a well-timed move. Because for his entire career, it's been the right move at the wrong time.
Yep.
Jeez.
Like you're just a year too late or a year too early. And I think he finally got it right.
Yep.
With the trajectory of Aston Martin, with where he's at in his career, I think, maybe in the next year or two, they could position themselves for a win. I'm not saying on pure merit, but, you get the kind of Brazil situation for Mercedes this past year. Something like that. If their car is as solid as it looks, I think they could be right there for something like that. Where, Max has an issue, Charles gets punted off, Carlos gets a visor stuck in his brakes. And screws his race, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're the only ones left, and we're just fast enough that the rest can't really overcome what they've had to deal with.
Yep. Yeah, I think they're in a really good position, and the what we've talked about, over the last couple of episodes so far this season is trajectory, right? Looking at where they started last year, where they moved to, and just kind of following that trajectory. And I think Aston is on a fantastic one.
Yep.
And I think we're only going to see it continue in that same direction.
And Lance Stroll looked good at times last season, so
yeah,
he can.
Yeah, and that's one thing we've talked about on here before.
I like Stroll, man.
I'm not I'm not a fan of him, but I do not discredit him. You know, did he get the seat because of Daddy? Yeah, probably so. Did he get a lot of stuff because of Daddy? Yeah, probably so. However, did he win in everything that he raced? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Has he proven that, regardless of how he may have originally got it or why, has he proven that he does deserve to be there? Absolutely.
He's the exception to the money rule in F1.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think he's the one so far that has proven that he deserves to be there. And has, you know, like a lot of those feeder series are they're spec series for the most part.
Yeah.
So if you win there, you are
the best driver.
The best driver.
It's not.
It is on merit. It is on driving skill, and that's what those series are designed to do. You know, they're designed to prove who the best drivers are, not who the best teams are. That's what Formula One's about, and Formula One only.
Yeah.
Those feeder series are to decide the drivers for Formula One, period. They have no other reason to be in existence.
Yeah.
It's gradual increases in performance and to see who can handle what and how they handle it. And it's all about what driver is better, period.
Mm-hmm.
And Stroll won at every level.
Yep. He did. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say, based on what Alonso did with the car in testing, Stroll is much more familiar with the car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or the platform in general, and the general idea of the way the car performs.
And he doesn't have that pressure of,
Right.
you know, am I going to lose my seat?
You know, so
right. I mean
eventually
the way he will. I guess when, like, I don't know, he gets AARP card and he hasn't won yet.
At that point, he owns Aston Martin, right?
Right. All right.
Yep.
So maybe he will keep his seat.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, Alonso is Alonso, right? He's going to jump in and he's going to do good things. And then when Lance gets back, he's familiar with the car. I think he should at least be right there where Alonso was.
Yeah.
To be honest, if not even a little bit ahead of him for the first couple, till Alonso really gets a sense of the car and really gets dialed in with it.
He looks dialed in already.
He does.
Maybe at least on the long run.
Yeah.
Average, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think this year is promising for Aston Martin.
Definitely.
All right. So I'm getting a little deep on time, but let's go ahead. Let's do this. Let's close this thing out with, we're gonna do podium as usual, as we usually close out with podium for Bahrain, and let's go ahead and give a prediction for constructors order at the end of the year.
Yep. All right. Let's run through the podium. So, Michael, we already know you're going 1-2.
Yep.
You going? What's the order of that 1-2?
I definitely think Max will continue his, dominance from last season. He'll get the 1.
Okay.
Checo's going to be right behind because I think Red Bull's looking so smooth. They're coming in with a lot of momentum. They're going to get the 1-2, but Leclerc is going to bring it home in the 3rd. He's going to give us a little bit of that action that we loved seeing at the beginning of last season. But I just think that there's going to be a difference. Big difference in the tires. That's where the tire god's going to come through in 2nd.
All right. Frank, where you at?
Why don't you go on this one?
All right. So
I'm about to freak y'all out.
Oh, here we go. Alonso.
Yeah, right. So this whole episode I've been going back and forth on the 1 and 2 spot, but
It's the same debate as last year.
You know what that means?
Yeah. I'm going Leclerc.
Woo!
P1. I think he's going to pull it out. I think we're going to see a strong show from Ferrari, just like we did last year here.
That means he has to get pole because he can only win from pole.
That's not true. It's not true. He proved that wrong this year in Austria.
That was a fluke. It's fine.
So I'm going Leclerc, Max, and Carlos.
Okay.
So, damn it. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to do in terms of 1 and 2. It's gonna be Max and Charles or Charles and Max. I don't freaking know. But my third place is going to Alonso.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I think maybe I don't know. Carlos and Checo might get tied up together some kind of way.
Yeah.
And I think Alonso is going to be right there. I think he's riding high on confidence right now. And I think this is going to be one of those races where he just kind of maybe sends that car where it don't even belong.
Hey, look, I'm here for it, man. I'd love to see that.
Same.
But,
all right, so
shit,
pick
I gotta
one
pick one. I gotta pick one. Fuck it, I'm going Charles.
Oh, you guys.
I'm going Charles. Man, I mean, like, how boring. Come on, like, it's so boring. Oh, Max wins again. Max wins again.
To win.
I mean, we picked that so many times last year, and then like in the first half of the year, it was like, okay, like it's a legitimate question. The second half of the year, it was like, all right. Hey.
We started at the second half of the year. We started picking other people just to be like, we want to see something different.
This is a different.
Like, all right, hey, let's just shake it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I honestly do think Ferrari has a lot more in the tank than what was shown in testing. I think it will be a legitimate fight. And you know, I mean, I think Red Bull is exactly where they look like they are. They're legit. They are they're the favorite.
Yep. All right, so Frank, you finished that one out, so you lead this one off.
All right.
Constructors finishing order predictions.
So I do. I mean, I alluded to this earlier. I do think Max will win the Drivers' Championship. However, I do think Ferrari will win the Constructors. I think their driver lineup is more conducive to winning the Constructors than Red Bull's.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see Ferrari, Red Bull, and I'm going to give Mercedes the benefit of the doubt. I think Aston Martin will be giving them problems. At this point, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Aston Martin leapfrogged them. After them, I have Alpine. I still think McLaren, despite their woes and how bad they look, I still think they're going to be, what is that, 6th?
Yeah.
I don't think they fall any deeper than that just because they have Lando.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think he makes up that difference. If it wasn't for him, I think from the looks of it, they could be possibly 9th, 8th or 9th. Yep. But after that, I'll go Alfa Romeo, then Haas, then Williams, then AlphaTauri.
Mm.
All right, well, I'll just go ahead and pick this up because it'll be short and quick and easy. You nailed my entire order I had here.
Wow.
Really?
Except for the bottom 2. I had AlphaTauri finishing 9th, Williams in 10th. But the rest, yes, I had here written down exactly the same.
You two are brothers. You guys are brothers or what? Different states, same mind. Come on.
Right.
All right. So where are you at, Michael?
All right. Well, obviously, no surprise. Red Bull's going to take home their second Constructors' Trophy in a row.
All right.
And it's because I'm such a big believer in Checo. And so I'm going to put this out there. Have me on the postseason review. If Checo doesn't perform this year, I will eat crow on that podcast. Whether it's a crow's nest pie or a pie to the face, I will do that live on air. I'm a believer in him, and I think he knows he's under the pressure. He has to perform. He's at the end of his career. He wants to go out on top the best way he knows how. He's been doubted his whole life, and he constantly proves himself. And I think he has a lot of doubters. It's a perfect year to do it. The tire god will come through, and Red Bull will get number one. Ferrari's going 2. I think Mercedes does figure it out in the middle of the season enough to be 3. I do have Aston Martin at 4. I'm excited about that team this year. Alpine at 5. I have Alfa Romeo fixing their reliability issues. I think Valtteri's shown that he can keep pace with those top midfielders sometimes. And I think if Zhou Guanyu can have the reliability of the car and sneak in there like he did in this first race in Bahrain last year, that they can be up there in 6. McLaren at 7. Same reasons as Frank pointed out. I got 8 with Haas. I think they'll be happy this year with not as much car damage from Hülkenberg and Magnussen being a good pairing. They've always had one driver that's been a significant crasher, Grosjean, Mazepin, and Schumacher. Now they have Hülkenberg.
Mm-hmm.
He's super reliable. But 8th place. And then 9 at AlphaTauri and 10 Williams. And I think that's just because Logan Sargent's brand new. Not a lot of experience, not a lot of experience testing, not a lot of experience with those practice runs. And I think Yuki Tsunoda has shown that he can be up there sometimes. Mm-hmm. And De Vries showed he could be up there last year sometimes. So AlphaTauri at 9. So here we go. No crow's nest for me at the end of the season.
I like it.
So I was going to suggest that and extend the invitation that you come back for at least the postseason review next year to run through these predictions.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get you on.
They're right here. All 3 of them are written down.
Hopefully we get you on during the season at some point.
Yes, I would love to. It's been a lot of fun. It's been an honor, but I'm absolutely willing to do something embarrassing for the podcast.
I don't think that's necessary. I don't know. Maybe we could figure something out in between now and then.
Right.
For either side, however it comes out. Maybe some little friendly wager.
Sounds good to me.
To where you're not the only one with something hanging over.
Okay. You have to wear some Tire God shirts.
But you know what? It's kind of funny what you said about Haas.
Okay.
How they've always had a crasher.
Mm-hmm.
How good did Mick look when Mazepin was his teammate?
Ooh.
He wasn't
for real.
Crasher.
Like how good? Like he looked so freaking good, so polished, so refined in his rookie year, and then all of a sudden you put K-Mag next to him, and it's like, wait a minute. Or how bad does that make? How bad was Mazepin?
I think it's probably that.
I mean, I agree. Like I wasn't very,
So what you pointed out about Stroll being the exception to the rule, Mazepin's like the rule.
Oh yeah, Mazepin and Latifi are the rules.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like Mazepin he had the added disability of having a self-proclaimed horrible car by the team, but nonetheless, Mick did okay with it.
Right. Yeah, he's struggling right now. I can't remember what series he's in, but I heard he was struggling, whatever divisions he's in right now.
I'm sure he was. What did he finish? Like 4th in F2?
I think so.
And he still got a seat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like he had some insane crashes and like bonehead moves in F2, and everybody's like, this dude's a fucking maniac.
Yeah. Not to mention like the fights in the paddock and shit.
Yeah. And then it's like, I mean, his dad's rich. Like Haas needs a sponsor.
Yeah.
Like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate everything. It's a blast. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. We
appreciate
enjoyed the
you
hell out of
joining
it.
us. So
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and wrap this one up with a quote as usual. And I'm a little pissed off that it went there. I had a feeling it might, but my quote was actually going to be Christian Horner's.
Oh,
Yeah, but we got there and kind of blew it. I was going to kind of loop that all together with, everybody that's got problems. Well, in the words of
that's
Christian
perfect.
Horner,
You should just do it.
change your fucking car.
Yep.
Right? Like it's about as fitting as it gets, right? So we'll
That's
roll
the
with
best
that
part
one.
about the Netflix thing, man.
Yeah.
It's just all
Yeah.
that behind the scenes stuff. Like, I don't care about the forced drama that they do,
Right. Exactly.
but
But
all
like
that
that kind of
behind the
stuff is awesome.
scenes
Yes.
stuff that we get
Yeah.
is just gold.
That's
You know-
that's just the motto of the season. If you're not
Yeah.
doing good, change your fucking car.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, you know what quote almost immediately following that I freaking loved just because I love Gunther.
Oh.
That dude is amazing, and I think Drive to Survive was like built for Gunther.
It was.
Is
He's the
when
new
they
main
all
character.
stood up, and he's like, "Let's go porpoising." Like, that was freaking great.
Yep.
Like you can always count on Gunther at like the right time for just some smart ass comment, and
Yep.
it's just perfect.
Right. Like the tension's about to just like boil over, and he's like, well, let's go porpoising.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So all right. So that's gonna be a wrap for this one. Again, Michael, thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. This has been a blast.
Thank you guys.
So-
You guys are awesome.
Again, y'all go find Michael Bell on TikTok, F1 for Funds with a Z. And while you're at it, go find us too, and give us all a like and a subscribe and a follow everywhere else. And man, at this point, it might as well be race time.
Let's freaking go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
couple days, FP1, it's here. So we will be back next week after the Bahrain GP, number 1 of the season. So let's get it.
Let's go. Awesome. Good luck, guys.
All
All right,
right.
Michael, take care.
You too.
See y'all.
Later.